All right, welcome to What's Happening Now on KBLKradio.com, and thank you for tuning in. This is your host, Bishop Bowser, and we have an exciting show for you today, and everyone should be listening. So right now, I want you to text or call 7 people and tell them to tune in to this show. Tell them right now, get on KBLKradio.com and tune in, because this is going to be a good one. We're going to have some discussion on a lot of issues. We got some generation. We got some, I want to say a generational gap of folks here, but we got folks from all generations here, and we should have a good discussion today. We're going to be talking about a little bit of everything, from politics to race to mass incarceration, education, housing, the whole shebang. We have 2 hours, so we want you to just, whatever you got to do right now, go get your coffee, go to the restroom, whatever you need to do, so you don't want to miss this. And so we're going to get started with this. So we have a good host of some guests here with us today, and we have with us Mr. Kevin Henderson, we have Mr. Kahala Fakim, and we have Mr. Armand King also with us today, and we're expecting a couple more people to come in, and as folks come in, or as those that jump in, that we have them to introduce themselves as we go through this. But we're going to be talking about today bridging the generational gap, working together to promote diversity, strengths, and values among the veterans. And when we talk about veterans, we're also talking about those traditionalists, baby boomers, the Generation Xers, and the Generation Yers, and the millennials. Now, if you want to join this conversation, you can call in and join this conversation at the number 619-919-4745. Again, if you want to join the conversation, you can call us at 619-919-4745. Now, if you're just sitting there or standing there and listening, you haven't done what I asked you to do. So now go text somebody, go tweet somebody, go Instagram somebody, get on Facebook and put it on blast. Get the word out for us today, so that we can have a lot of people listening to this, so that we can have a good discussion on bridging this gap. Now, I have a joke that I wanted to tell, before kind of get into some things. And, I normally like to give my little commentary. And so we have a couple hours so we could take our time and work through this. But here's a joke. And the joke is called, is dealing with the generational gap. And it says, a very self-important college freshman attending a recent football game took it upon himself to explain to a senior citizen sitting next to him why it was impossible for the older generation to understand his generation. And this is what the young man said. So you grew up in a different world, actually an almost primitive one, the student said, loud enough for many of those nearby to hear. The young people of today grew up with television, jet planes, space travel, man walking on the moon. Our spaceships have visited Mars. We have nuclear energy, electric and hydrogen cars, computers with DSL, BPS, light speed processing. And pausing to take another drink of beer, the senior took advantage of the break in the student's litany and said, "You're right, son. We didn't have those things when we were young, so we invented them. Now you, arrogant little, what are you doing for the next generation?" So that's the way older folks look at the younger folks sometimes, because younger folks look at the older folks like, "Hey man, you're out of date, and y'all behind time," and things like that. But like, how you think you got where you are? We climb on each other, and we got to keep taking it to the next level. I remember when I was growing up in church, coming up in church, I got in church when I was about 22 and a half years old, and I used to look at my pastor, who was a lot older than me, probably around my age where I am now when I first got in church, but I felt like, he was out of touch, and didn't understand and didn't know and all of that. And he used to always say, "You don't see what I see." He said, he'll hold up a book. He said, "You see on this side, you see the back cover of the book. I see what's in the inside." And then when I got in his position, I said, man, he was right. I see things from a completely different perspective now than when I was out there, looking and observing and watching him. I think we all have something we can bring to the table, but there are some things in our society that we have to understand that we want to talk about that to see if we have lost that. And I'm a pastor, so I'm scripture driven. And in Leviticus 19:32, it says from the New Century Version, show respect to old people, stand up in their presence, show respect also to your God, I am the Lord. Then that's the end of quote. And then also in Job chapter 32, verse 6 through 10, and this is Elihu speaking. He was a young man that rebuked the Job's friends who came in and was, remember Job was that man that got sick and got afflicted by the devil. God opened them, removed the hedge, and let the devil come in. And remember, the devil destroyed his family and his property, his business, everything. And Job still praised God. He held on to his integrity. And the devil said, well, skin for skin, man, will curse to your face, man, if you touch his life. And God said, you can do whatever you want to do with him, but not his life. His life belonged to me. So Job was afflicted, and his wife turned on him. Why don't you go on and curse God and die? And then his friends, Job, you have some homeboys, you have friends out there, you expect them to come and encourage you and lift you up and help you out of what you in. They heard Job was messed up. He was sick and afflicted. So they said, let's go get encouraged, Job. Let's go see. But when they saw Job, the Bible said that for 3 days they couldn't say nothing. Then when they did, they started rebuking him and telling him, you got sin in your life. You got to get yourself together and so on. So Elihu, but what the Bible didn't tell us, there was a young man there by the name of Elihu, or Elihu, however way you want to pronounce his name, that was listening to everything, but he never said anything in the process of the discourse that was going on between Job and his friends. So Elihu in Job 32 and 6 through 10 said, and I quote beginning at verse number 6, so Elihu, son of Barachel, the Buzite, said this, I am young and you are old. That is why I was afraid to tell you what I know. I thought older people should speak, and those who have lived many years should teach wisdom. But it is the spirit in a person, the breath of the Almighty, that gives understanding. It is not just older people who are wise. They are not the only ones who understand what is right. What is right. So I say, listen to me. I too will tell you what I know. End of quote. And a lot of times that's where young people feel, I have a voice in this too. And don't just drown my voice out and tell me to go somewhere and sit in the corner. I don't know anything and I don't have no experience and so on. And it sounded like Elihu, when he really started, he represented God better than any of them. And God had rebuke for everybody except that young man, Elihu. And so also in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 1 through 2, it says, and I quote, I don't be harsh or impatient with an older man. Or excuse me, I don't. He said, don't be harsh or impatient with an older man. Talk to him as you would your own father, and to the younger men as your brothers. Reverently honor an older woman as you would your mother, and the younger woman as sisters. And so one of the things that I find here is that, all generations, there is a sense of us being asked to have respect for. Not only age, but gender, whether it's an old man or an old woman. And of course, you wouldn't say that to our elders. I wouldn't, Mr. Kahalifa King, you old man. He ain't having that.
I'm the oldest in here, so I don't mind being old.
Well, women, you're not going to call one of our older sisters you old woman. They ain't having that. But, so you have that, then you also have the younger. But the Bible calls for us to respect all generations and all ages and all genders, and we should be able to do that, and we should be able to work together. Now there are 4 and possibly 5 generations we have working in our communities, and the one group that I told you about was the traditionalists and veterans, and these folks were born from 1900 to 1945. Then you have the baby boomers. Baby boomers were born from 1946 to 1964, and that includes me. I was born in 1962. Generation X, which was from 1965 to 1976. So then there's a debate whether you have the Generation Y or just millennials. But I put Generation Y's in here, which is from 1977 to 1990. And then you had the millennials born since 1991. And those are the generations that we have today. My grandfather was a traditionalist, I would say, because he was born in 1906, but he passed and he's gone. But so I want to get into some introductions before we take our break here with our guests. And and what we just want you to do is just tell us who you are and what you do in the community. And if you want to tell your age, you can tell your age. Can we do, or do we want to wait for the break? We got time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Kevin Henderson. I represent an organization called Leaders of Change, and what I do is try and support our younger generation and our community in making for change, man. Mm-hmm. It's different, you know, and we have to understand, I think, that the generational gap is so serious, man. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, the frustration from our young people is because those of us, some of us, not all of us, mm-hmm. some of us who are our age, which I think you call the baby boomers, have taken a more passive stance for the injustices that happen today, mm-hmm. and you know, it doesn't fit the era of today.
Right.
You know, we in our times, you know, we were in, you know, the marches were good, mm-hmm. and the marches have paved the way for today's change. Mm-hmm. You know, but it took time.
Right.
You know, those marches we just now feeling the results of that. Mm-hmm. But this generation, man, they want resolve right now. Mm-hmm. You know, and it fits the injustices. You know, mm-hmm. all the stuff that's going on with people of color. You know, of course, we have the police shootings of minorities, mm-hmm. Black and brown, and they won't change right now. So I'm in support of you know, what they need, because mm-hmm. when we get our age, we on what we call remaining time.
Right.
You know, we on remaining time. They have, you know, 40, 50 more years. So we have to support their vision, and that's just my stance on it.
All right.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and I just wanted to thank you for inviting me. Khalifa King. I don't mind telling my age. I am 66, and I'll be 67 in December, and I was very involved in the movements back in the day, and I'm looking forward to the discussion because I feel as though that I don't know if I really identify with the terminology of a generation gap. Mm-hmm. I think that there's some other language that we can consider mm-hmm. in terms of there being a gap. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Channing Moreland. I'm a mother. I'm a teacher. I'm involved with Reclaiming the Community, and I have an organization called Nubia. That stands for New United Black Interest Advocates, and that's a Black women's organization. And we're all about building community, but through a matriarchal approach. So whatever things have to do with the family and the children and mothers and all of that, we're all about that. And that's me. I'm 28.
All right.
Yes, my name's Armand King. I'm 22 years old, and I don't know why they laughing. Yeah, I'm 22, going on 35 right now. But I represent an organization called Paving Great Futures. Actually, I'm a part of an organization called Paving Great Futures. I represent the community. I represent the brothers and sisters out here in the hood that have no voice and the voiceless. And I'm just here for a great conversation because we do need to talk about this generation stuff. And I'm not about pulling us apart. I think we need to work together because. Us youngsters, we need to wake some of y'all older folks up, and some of y'all older folks need to wake your colleagues up as well, because we don't not want to work with you. We do, but we ain't gonna be with the foolishness and the passiveness
and
either.
We feel the same way about y'all.
Hey,
so that's mutual. That's the conversation.
Let's get it in.
All right, we have another young man here. Tell us who you are and what's your name.
How y'all doing out there? I'm Patrick. I'm probably the youngest one in here. I'm 19 years old, and I work with an organization called Paving Great Futures. I'm a part of the organization, and I'm just here for a great conversation and to soak up knowledge, and that's it.
All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take this break, and we're going to be right back. So stay tuned to what's happening now on KBLKradio.com, and we'll be back after these brief commercials. All right, welcome back to what's happening now on KBLKradio.com, and we got a good one. And so we're going to jump right into this conversation. We were giving introductions of everybody, and now Mr. King Kahalifa. You were talking about this. You don't believe, or you don't really accept the term generation gap. Yeah. Tell us what you mean by that.
Well, what I was saying is that I'm not so sure if I can buy into it.
Okay.
And I just think that sometimes language and words are very, very powerful. Mm-hmm. And when we speak about, to me, and this is just my opinion, mm-hmm. my view is that when we speak about gaps, mm-hmm. then what we're identifying is that there is to me it seems as though that we assume that there is no connection, mm-hmm. and when you think about a gap, like mm-hmm. there's nothing connected, mm-hmm. and this is where I believe that there's a misnomer in my mind's eye. No, because there is a connection. The reality is that we haven't come to a point of common cultural consciousness, mm-hmm. That is that connection, not a gap. Mm-hmm. And so if we allow ourselves to hear and be heard, regarding the common cultural consciousness, mm-hmm. because the common cultural consciousness hasn't changed from the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s to where they are now. Mm-hmm. That common cultural consciousness is still there. That's why we have a process like, the Black Lives Matter movement, the paving great futures, movement, and what the young lady was saying about her group as well, and what Kevin was saying. I think if you boil it down and look at what the real message is from each one of these particular warriors, these organizations that are fighting for liberation, mm-hmm. I believe that you will hear the same the common cultural consciousness, language, or purpose, being shared and stated and felt. That's what I mean by, I don't know if I can buy into the language of generational gap. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. Okay. That's food for thought.
Yeah. So I'm anxious to hear this, young brother, because you are today's generation. What's your stance on the difference, the gap, or what you say, Mr. King, between those of us my age and those your age? What do you see the problem is?
The gap is ignorance and knowledge.
Okay.
That's the gap right there. The gap is the lack of mentors willing to help. There's only so many people and so many organizations. How many people want help? How many people really need help? But how many people can get it? How many people are willing to be those mentors, to go out there and go pick up little bros and take in little bros and help them get jobs, and you know what I mean? Like it's a lot of people in the Southeast, it's a lot of people in San Diego that need help but can't get it. That hear about all the paving great futures and all the marches and everything, but how they gonna get there? I know a lot of people and that go to Lincoln, that go to Morris, and that want to do right and want to be right, but you know what I'm saying? They can't get help.
Right.
But so when you tell me that what's the gap? It's just the lack of mentors and the ignorance of us teens and us young adults and the knowledge of the older adults. That's
absolutely. And my stance is this. And this is what I see in our communities, not just in our communities, but on a national scale. We have a lot of young people who have a vision mm-hmm. for the future. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen is folks who are my age and above, and not you, Mr. King. Not an attack on you, guys.
I don't feel attacked. I'm too old for it now.
But what I've seen in our communities and nationally is that they don't want to give them a chance to share what they want now, because we continuously put our past generation in line with what they're doing today, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. That's what I mean by the generational gap. You know, the times of today, our young people are demanding resolve right now. You know, they don't want to wait 10 and 20 years. You know, that's the difference. That's what I say between rallies and the marches and protests. These young people are protesting, man. You know, they're out there stopping business as usual because they want resolve now. And my experience, I've seen a lot of those my age, and I'm gonna use your boy Pastor Burns for instance. You know, Mark Burns.
Trump surrogate.
Yeah, Trump surrogate Pastor Burns. I'm gonna use him for an example. Now he just got exposed. Yeah, he did. Exposed. Yeah, right. Lying, and to me, it's a not just passive, but it's kind of cooning a little bit, brother. Excuse my terminology, but that's just what I see. And these young people are not standing for that, and that's what the gap is. That's the gap I speak. You know, they're saying, man, get out the way. You know, because that's not what we're doing today. We no longer cooning. We want to resolve right now. That's my stance.
Anybody else?
Armand.
Yeah. Well, Armand, I was just waiting to hear everybody talk. Really, I didn't want to. But let's realize what's really the problem here. Why is there this generational gap? Previous to us being kidnapped and taken and brought to America, these generation issues weren't a thing. It was actually knowledge that was continually passed down and circulated from the elders. There was much respect, and we were connected. So something, we know what that thing was, force came in and disrupted all that on purpose, bringing us to where we are today. That separated the old, the young, the dark-skinned, the light-skinned, the male, the female, broke up the family. They did a great job. You feel me? To where we have these things now. Now, even as, okay, we'll bring it, that's way back when. Not even that far back, but we'll say that's way back when. Okay, let's go to the 70s and the movement, the Black Panthers, the US, all them different organizations, the things that was happening. There was an actual entity and a force with J. Edgar Hoover, the CIA, FBI, that was put into those organizations to break them up. And I was watching that KPBS special on the Black Panthers recently, and dude was deliberately going after the leaders, and the code name Messiah. They're smart. So they was going after all the leaders, and particularly leaders that was getting voiced and that was being heard by other nationalities and races. Take them out.
That's right.
Okay, so they did that. They accomplished their goal and knocked them out. Then what came immediately after that? Crack cocaine. Okay, now this was a serious epidemic that came in, destroyed the black community even more. And right with the crack cocaine, as that came, now you got a generation, because leaders are all gone. The Black Panthers are damn near annihilated. And if you were still around, you were scared and going and trying to just save yourself and your immediate family. So these organizations and stuff were shooken up or disbanded all the way. So now you got a generation of kids. This is starting to mass incarceration starting to happen. Starting to lock a lot of brothers up, sisters up. So now you got this generation of kids that got to raise themselves. Now you got the birth of the Bloods and the Crips that didn't initially start off as what it became. You know what I mean? Because that was us still, we're kings and queens. We're still inside, like striving for more with no guidance though, because that got ripped away. So now we're like using these brilliant brains that we have, but with no guidance, so we create these other things. Then we got, please believe it, we didn't just start off shooting and killing each other. That was another entity. Now we got the COINTELPRO and all this stuff infiltrating these organizations. They in there getting this stuff popping, dropping off rags here, killing this person over here. Their hand is deeply in the mix. So now we got this big blood Crip era that damn near scared the whole world, and they push it in the media, they push it in the movies, they push it in the music. Gangster rap, #1 music for how long? You know what I mean? They blasted this image of us to where even our own elders were now in fear of us, because we were maniacs and crazy. So now you start really seeing this generation gap, we'll call it. But I totally agree with you on that gap where the use of language is important, and I totally agree with you. But just use that word one more time.
It's okay.
But it started that separation and that disconnection between our elders and the youth started deepening even more with that. And I can understand it looking back.
So do you see
it was crazy.
a disconnection today?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, so you asked me to talk. I was gonna shut up for a minute. Sasha, he did it. Outside the box, taking over. Okay, so yeah, so that separation started happening during that whole gangbang era. And that was some crazy stuff. Never in the history of our people has it. I know there's been tribal wars. People point to that, blah blah blah. But I mean to the point where I'm gonna kill this bro. I don't even know him. Because I think he's from over there. We just killing each other. That was the dramatic era that we're just now kind of coming to a conclusion of and the end of. But that's through evolution. It's growing more, and it's only so long you can keep a king's mind messed up. It's the natural God inside of you is going to be born again. And that's what you see happening right now with this generation. So yeah, all these police attacks, all this, none of this is new. None of this is a brand new invention. This has been going on. You know what I mean? We got social media stuff bringing this out to the air. So back to so you have elders that even some conscious elders. You know, I was raised by ex-Black Panthers who who at the end of the movement. So they're separated themselves and like, whoa, these kids is crazy. This ain't my generation. Or they totally locked up. You know what I mean? Or still, we got incarcerated Black Panthers right now, still. So you know what I mean? Being held political prisoners right now. You know what I mean? So that we're not that far removed from that. So you got our generation. We raised ourselves. We didn't have no dads. If they weren't affected by that, the crack took them out. So now we're here where we are now, where the consciousness is being re-rose and reborn again. Okay? And now you got some elders that's like, yeah, I'm with it right there. You got other elders that, through them becoming docile and now politically affiliated, and now they got a good job for the mayor or for this person. Come on. So now they so comfortable, they been scared so long, now they good because they kids in college, you know what I mean? They got the little E-class Benz, thinking they got their little crumbles, you know what I mean? So they satisfied with their life. And they know, like you said, they're on limited time now. So how am I going to ride my time out? Am I going to be revolutionary again? Or I'm 60 years old now. I'm 59, 70. I'm not going back there. I'm going to keep my life and my little family cluster okay because we okay. They're not thinking about the whole community family anymore. But so that disconnection is there with some. But then I definitely, and with us, with youngsters, we don't want to be disconnected to our elders. It ain't a please don't, but we're not accepting the bullshit. Can I cuss on here? I don't know. We're not accepting that. And then
I'm not going to encourage you to cuss.
No, sir. Okay.
Who you are?
Okay. We're not just accepting that. But as soon as these elders and brothers are like yourself, man, I can't wait to call you. I just need to hear some good information. I love it because I know you give me the unadulterated real, and I see you in the field, and you're not separated from us. There's a lot of elders that connect with us and reach out to us. There's a reason we got a radio station out here because Brother Tayati stayed on my back about this, and I wasn't a disconnect. I was a brother. Come on, we need you. You know what I mean? So you feel the real, man. We from the gutter. We from the streets, so we know when somebody's being fraudulent. I know in the past 2 years, I probably got a dozen different hugs and handshakes, and I love you, brother. And we gonna do this for you, and I'll never hear from you again. Not that I'm begging her for nothing, man. I'm a born hustler. I know how to make my own stuff. But I recognize that I recognize the fake in you. Okay, and no, we're not reaching out to those. So, there's no disconnect, really, man. It's a disconnect with those that disconnect from us. We wish y'all came all the way.
Let me get this. We got to bring Channy into this. Because not only we dealing with youth and generation as far as in that, but also gender. And so we need to hear from a woman's perspective, and also from your generation, as far as do you see a generational gap, and give us a little explanation to what
I see a disconnect, but for me, every problem that we have within the Black community, I see as a result of colonialism, a symptom of colonialism. So when we're talking about gender and we're talking about man and woman relationship, that's a symptom of colonialism. The way that we are now is because of what was imposed on us. The way that the community is, the way that the family is, and the generational gap or disconnect is definitely there. But like Armand said, it's not with everyone. And so we connect with some, like Bishop Bowser, like he said, some people we connect with and they're there and they reach out, and then some people shun, and so you don't connect with them. So it's just basically which group is coming out more in full force, or who do we see more, and who can we connect with, because everybody we can't connect with. And then there are some who are elders who feel as though because they're an elder they deserve respect.
Automatic.
People deserve respect, period. And so for me as a person, I give respect because of who I am. No matter who you are and what you do, there's a certain level of respect. And when you're an elder or a younger, no matter what, how you present yourself to me, and then I respond accordingly.
Right.
But I'm not going to go below a certain level of respect just because of who I am.
Right.
But just because you're older than me, that doesn't deserve a certain amount of reverence. It just depends on who you are. Are you out there in the field? What are you doing? And so I talk to my dad, and he always says, what you have to remind the older people is that we are who you were before you assimilated. So like Armand is saying, people are comfortable and they don't want to get dirty again and all of those different things. So there is a disconnect. And it's just with certain people, certain groups. Like I wouldn't say this is a disconnect. I'm 28 and you're
54.
Yeah, so you're my father's age. So that's not a disconnect. But some people there is a disconnect with. And then even with younger kids. And so I'm a teacher. I'm 28. Everybody who's 28 my age teaching in high school doesn't connect with the students the way that I connect. It just depends on your life experiences, what you're conscious of, what you're aware of, and what you bring to the table. So it's just different with different people.
Right.
If I could jump in real quick and just pick up on a couple of things, because I think what we're dealing with is so multifaceted as it relates to who we are as a black nation.
Right.
There's a whole lot of things, and so I think that's one thing. It's hard to kind of wrap your arms around, almost like herding cats, so to speak, all over the place. But something to add to what our mom was saying earlier. Another piece with those things you identified that decimated our communities, wants to overlook, is that whole infusion on the war on poverty that came out of the Johnson era as well, which gave a real serious misnomer, that false sense of middle classism that we made it to the promised land. And so we threw away the dashikis and the naturals and what have you, that was the other piece, so I'm supporting you. I really feel as though that my generation dropped the ball. I would be one of the first to say that. Our generation dropped the ball.
I'd like to interject. I know you got a train of thought, but when we say our generation dropped the ball, when you look in the 60s going into the 70s, one of the things I think people tend to forget is kind of what Armand was talking about in the sense of the assassination of our leaders, and then right after the suppression of movements, and then right after, when you move in the 70s, you have mass incarceration where you have millions and millions of young black men that are taken into prison. So it really kind of wipe leadership out in the
ball was ripped from your hand.
But let me clarify, because what we do, we hear words and we jump on things.
Yeah.
That's a prime example. We just did it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, we got to check it in the moment. So I'm gonna check it in the moment. So my terminology in terms of dropping the ball is the fact that as parents, not just leaders. See, parents are leaders within the family as well. Dropping the ball is continuing to educate our children about our history, our connectivity, our legacy. That's dropping the ball. That's so that's my point of clarification. I don't have to depend on Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They can be the seed, but I can also help the process grow for what my responsibility is. Like the lady says, about respect, and respect begins with self. What kind of self-respect do I have? So that's part of it in terms of dropping the ball. The other piece that we overlook oftentimes around that whole late 60s, early 70s movement was the whole AFDC movement. I look at it as a movement. That was a strategy also to remove the black man from the family. So now that family has the new daddy and the new lover, which is called welfare.
Right.
And then that led to some of the mindsets as well. Well, I don't need no man. Well, I don't need no woman. I'm gonna have a whole bunch of them. I'm gonna drop my seed wherever it is, whatever the mindsets. So for me, because I'm a therapist, I deal with mental and emotional behavioral wellness. And so to me, that's what a lot of this is steeped in. Our behavior and our emotions and our mindsets. And doing the work that do. And I'm a professor at City College. And my students are from 17 to 70-something years old, and the classes I teach is personal growth. And I'm just recognizing how they are coming to this higher education process completely ill-prepared. And I say it this way, and that's not denigrating them and minimizing them, is they're ill-prepared not only academically, So academics is one thing. I don't focus on that so much. I'm talking about how can we assist and you with you getting some sense of self-identity, self-assessment, self-awareness, which allows you to lead into the process of self-growth. And it comes in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. So for me, those were there are a couple of other pieces as welfare and the I made it to the promised land piece, along with the crack cocaine and the
whole
mass
everything.
incarceration.
Yeah,
So that's why I said that is so many pieces to it.
That's true.
That is hard. So that's where we get caught.
So why did we go wrong?
We're working against a wicked enemy. And this is all strategic design. This is by design. We are 400 years behind.
That it is. And you do have and you do, and then we did this whole and I'm still trying to understand this, and I hope I can gain some insight, from this conversation and many others afterwards. I'm not quite so sure where we went backwards on respecting our black queens. I don't know. I can't put my finger.
That's
on
been
that.
instilled since slavery.
Yeah.
That's been instilled since
But
slavery.
I understand.
It's not new either.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But our conversation is talking about where we did have some level of momentum and movement and certain things about how we behaved, thought, and felt. But there's something that happened around that same time with this whole gender. That's when it's this whole gender thing, and I'm not quite sure yet.
Around that same time, we lost respect for each other too, because we're killing men. We might be down in women, but I'm killing my brother too. So
Absolutely.
it was just a self-hate that was pushed and gone from all across the board.
We have to take a real good look at. We have. To me, I'm just suggesting that we take a real good look at that, and then we have to look at the whole way that structural, institutional white supremacy and racism has really done a number. I said, the enemy, like you said, they've been very strategic in how they have accomplished, what's happened from the 1800s to where we, all the way up to where we are, to today. There's, and you mentioned Mark Burns. The other brothers in this camp is Paris Denman. Yeah. So I'm just saying we've got to take a look at. We've always had. I think that these people remind me of the historical aspects or the impacts of Denmark Vesey as an example. Denmark Vesey's movement was killed, because of the same kind of infiltration by us. We infiltrated to be the voice and the eyes of Massa, and so Denmark Vesey's movement was destroyed behind that kind of a process, along with that.
Now let me ask you, because you brought up a lot of different points here, but there's a couple of them that stick to my mind, and one of them is dealing with systemic racism, which I think a lot of times when we talk about systemic racism, sometimes people don't really know what we're talking about, but all these different policies that you're talking about, like AFDC and some of the other policies that we deal with, drugs and so on, these policies that were made, this is what we were talking about yesterday, is when laws are changed, it doesn't matter what sparked that change of law, it always hit the black community first, as far as the oppression of it and arresting people and mass incarceration or whatever law it is, policies within systems and so on. So, and then the other piece that you brought up was about how we treat our women, our black queens and princesses and so on. And Channing, I know you wanted to say something on that.
Well, just listening to him speak, I have to hear conversation first, and then it'll get me going. But going back to the generational gap or disconnect, hearing him speak to all of the things that cause the way the black community are, a lot of times when we speak to older people, they're quick to say, well, you guys do this, you guys don't do this, you need to do this, the kids are doing this. And my thing is always, the kids did not raise themselves, so that came from somewhere, whether it was, like Armand said, a lack of whatever figure you had or didn't have. But a lot of older people don't acknowledge that, so they don't acknowledge the systemic things that have been put in place that have dismantled our community and the way that they affect the children, which is us, or the young people. So that's kind of a disconnect. A lot of older people will, it's more comfortable nowadays than it was before when you walked down the street and saw different things when racism was more overt.
Right.
And so now a lot of it is not overt, and because it's not, people are more comfortable. So I'm comfortable. What are you guys complaining about? You guys need to be doing XYZ, but there's nobody to tell us, like this young man said, tell us to do XYZ. We want to do better, but who is helping us do better?
Right.
And so a lot of older people kind of ignore that when I hear conversations. They don't acknowledge their place in training us. If we're not being trained, what can we do?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then as far as the black women and disrespecting black women, I think a lot of that has to do with media, what society does and what society shows and displays. If they're going to inundate us with certain images and messages about black women, then that is going to affect the way us as black women look at ourselves and then the way black men see us and the way they treat us. So a lot of times we're not conscious of these things, and we're not conscious of what's happening to us. And so it's not these innate things like black people just don't respect themselves and black men just don't like black women.
Right.
Like, no, that came from somewhere, and it's subconscious things, and they just filter through all of these different channels, and we don't know, and then we have these broken relationships and these broken images and views of one another.
Right. And one of the things that I know for sure, is because we were talking about sex trafficking yesterday, and we was talking about prostitution and so on. And one of the things I mentioned is that that's been going on since the ages, Bible days and so on. So we can't blame that on the black community, But I think one of the problems that I see, not so much problem, but gap. I don't even want to say gaps, but issues out there in the community as far as back then and now and so on, at least from my perspective, because what you're talking about media, is a lot of our songs, a lot of our movies, and what the narrative that is in the news media about blacks and ourselves taking responsibility, and we fight within ourselves. And sometimes I don't know if that's a generational gap or just a issue of folks seeing things from different perspectives. But songs that talk about pimping and talk about prostituting young women and calling them the bees and all these other different kind of things that we hear. My son Jay, when he was a little kid, I would go over to the house and pick him up. One day I went over there and he was listening to this rap stuff, and it was, it was loud and he banged. So I called his mom and said, hey, let me let him listen to this, of course, because she think I'm saying it because I'm in church. But, it was the language and everything else. And so, she blah, blah, kind of, disagreed with me. And then 2 weeks later, she called me telling me that he called a teacher BITCH in school. So it's like, in my mind, I'm connecting the two, like, okay, well, why are you letting them listen to that stuff? And sometimes we don't realize what we've been taught and what we're allowing to be put in us. And I know back in the 70s and coming up in the 80s, before I got in church, prostitution was around, strip joints were around, and things like that. But I saw it become popularized in the black community, where it wasn't that much shame on it as it used to be. And I think that, the songs, the movies, everything, it made it easier for our young ladies to go and strip. Like Jay was talking about yesterday, like, we got to make this money. I won't go sell my body, but I'll go to a strip club. And I've seen young ladies that graduate out of high school with a 4.0 grade point average and go straight to making the money in the strip joint. Of course, connected to poverty too. But I'm talking about that sense of our morals and what makes it easier for us to do things. And I think what Channing was talking about as far as the media and so on, we don't really pay attention to that, what we're getting today versus what we used to get back in the day. You go listen to some of the old songs, talk about love and all that, but it's the songs are not degrading our black women like they do today.
Yeah. Here's the disconnect that I speak of, and this is a frustration, I think, from a lot of our younger generation. One, what do we do about, when every time we take a step forward, we become more unified, there's people in position, there's people of power who go to those community leaders who are of our age and a little bit above and say, hey, we can't let them get to the point to where they're unified, and send them in to infiltrate what's going on. That's one of the problems that I have
That's a big
with,
one.
with the
But
disconnect.
that's a big one.
That's a big one. And the other thing is that how are we supporting our young people? Are we saying once they have a design, once they have made up their minds to do something, and it's in the best interest of them as a whole, and then some of us say, well, you can't do it like that. You know, and it stops the process. You know what I'm saying? That stops the process of change. That's the disconnect that I speak, and I understand that. You know, they have people like you, Pastor Brown, like me, and like Brother King here, who is in tune with today's times. You know, who are in support. Who we are the ones who are in the trenches and see all these things. But there's others. There's others that are put in, like I said, put in position to stop the progress of change.
Like you said.
That's the That's where we at.
It's already happening.
Yeah, no,
we don't
no,
listen to them.
That's where we at right now.
Right.
How do we do that? How do we stop that from happening?
Yeah, we
have to
already
identify it first. When we went to City Hall the first time and we spoke on the non-agenda public comment, we were there. It was probably, 20 or so of us in our t-shirts, and they pulled some little trick where they had the lady Myrtle Cole. There's like a rule, I guess we were supposed to read the full something.
Oh, I heard about that, yeah.
And the lady was reading for 30 minutes or however long. But in that time, a group of older people came to basically oppose what it was that they knew the message we were going to have. So
they were called in.
They were called in. So they're going to come say this. So yeah, the older community leaders to oppose what we were doing. And what we're doing is nothing selfish. It's not like, well, we want this. We want you to do your job. And so when you have older people who are coming in trying to speak to us and speak us down, like, we're not going for it. So like I said, you have to be able to identify those people, identify those tactics.
Agreed.
And we know what it is.
Agreed.
We know
they
what it
need
is.
to be called. See, to me, they need to be called out. See, we have this thing.
Thank you. That's what I said yesterday.
Expose and identify.
Yeah, identify and expose. And so that's what you should do. Is what to me, unfortunately, why aren't we, as elders, if you will, why aren't we identifying that we are glad that you are now involved in civic engagement? Exactly. I mean, my God. I mean,
why do your grandkids got to come in here and do this anyway? Why didn't you already check the situation?
Exactly. And then tell us what we're not doing and how not to do it. But whatever you did not work, or we wouldn't be up here at City Hall at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We should be at work or doing whatever with kids. And not to say that everything you did didn't work, but don't, well, you need to follow and do exactly what we did. No, we don't.
Obviously, it didn't work.
And that's where you see a disconnect, right?
What Patrick was saying, and I just want to, because you said something very powerful about the word mentors, and I have a probably different take on the word, but I understand what you're saying, and I respect it and accept it. My thing, what my learning lessons as an elder is that my question, I have only 2 questions that starts the dialogue to know where you are as a holistic male, and that is, 1, what is it that you think you'd like to do? What do you want? What do you think you need? And how can I help you do it?
Absolutely.
Those are the only 2 questions. It doesn't have to be convoluted and confusing. It can be real basic and simple. That starts the dialogue, and then you get to know who I am holistically as a black man, and I get to know you holistically as a young black man. See, to me, that's what the challenge is. But going back to what you guys are saying, that's not what you're getting, generally speaking, especially here in this city. I've been in this city since 1959, and I've seen a lot of bullshit change here. You know, and it's the same people warming up. What happens to gumbo when you keep warming up over and over?
But yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where you have the disconnect, even with our generation. We might have different approaches, because I know I had a different approach with that. But like I was calling my son Jay here and say, hey, what's going on? Blah, blah, and share my. He explained to me what the movement is, what they're doing, and so on. I said, oh, okay, you know. When you get to this level, let me know so I can jump in there.
Absolutely.
And so on. You know? That's how you do it. And I said, do your thing. You know, do what you got to do.
You know, back in the day, you used to ask, and I learned something. And I was talking to an educator in Riverside, and I was telling her some of the things that I do in the presentations. And in those presentations, I say to a young person, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said to me, well, I don't use that at all because it doesn't fit today's time. I said, well, what do you use? She said, when I speak to them, I ask them, what do you want to change?
Thank you.
That's a good question. You know what I'm saying? What do you want to change versus what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to change? What do you want to see change in your generation? That's a better conversation than what you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why I know I hear the youngsters and Mac them always talking about the solutions. You know, hey man, we can argue, we can fight, we do all these different things. What about the solutions? So you know, we're going into part 2, but we're going to take a break. And be back after some brief commercials. But stay tuned to what's happening now on KBOK Radio, because we're not done. This is a 2-hour show here. So as you see, we're just getting started here, because we got to talk about these politics and Trump and Hillary and pastors, churches, the community, school system. We're gonna try to get into a lot of this because we can talk about this all day. But stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these brief commercials. All right, welcome back to What's Happening Now on KBOKRadio.com. And thank you for staying with us. And as you know, we're talking about building that bridge to a generation of this generational gap. We've been having some good discussions here. And I kind of want to move, we touched on it a little bit, but moving to the politics, you know, because there's a generation gap that's going on. I know, you know, when you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, and some approve and don't approve of them and so on. I know at the beginning I had issues with them. But then when I started, you know, when you take a closer look at systemic racism and you take a look at media and so on, and how our community is just straight up ignored. And you see their tactics, you're like, wow, you know, I'm down with that, you know, because they're disrupting stuff and getting attention and changing the narrative. And that's what it's all about in the climate that we're in right now. And I know, you know, in San Diego, when politicians come here, whether you look at Hillary or whether you look at Donald Trump, and I know they have a few other folks, the Green Party and the Libertarian Party and so on, that's also kind of trying to get in the race. But the main two is the Republican and Democrat and so on. I haven't endorsed anybody or anyone. And a lot of times I vote down the ballot and vote on local issues, won't vote on the president, because I'm not just going to vote on somebody that I can't get with. But when we talk about politics, we look at San Diego. I've seen San Diego is always ignored, even when those politicians come to San Diego. And the issue that I have, I take it personal. So I'm a little different from other people. Folks just look at what policies a person is presenting and so on. And sometimes that's even vague with their policies. But I also look at when you come into my city, are you reaching out to the black community? They could say Trump is not reaching out to the black community, but when Hillary came in, she didn't reach out to the black community either. And so she don't get a pass either. And I know there's a vast difference between Hillary and Trump in the sense of the statements that they have made as far as, you know, trying to reform the criminal justice system and things like that, even though she had a big part of that and so on. So I want to ask this panel here that we have, this great panel that we have here in regards to politics and the politicians coming here. Do you feel connected to, well, I know, don't shoot me for saying this, to Trump or Hillary?
No.
I know you don't feel connected to Trump, but I don't do either one, because
the only difference between them is one is a man and one is a woman, and the public persona and the image that they are putting out, they're virtually the same. But so Hillary just presents as the lesser of two evils, and so I feel like a lot of people are going to go in not voting for her. They're just going to make sure they don't vote for him, so they're going to end up voting for her. And I'm not voting for either one of them. And it's like, well, let's make this monster out of Trump, and then Hillary's going to win because enough people are going to hate him that they're just going to want to make sure he doesn't win. But no,
I think it was set up. I think the president isn't elected; they're selected. Hillary was selected a long time ago.
Oh, that's exactly right.
Trump, of course, you put this Trump cartoon character up here, you know, and everybody's going to go towards Hillary. You had Bernie Sanders was the super flower child. Then you got Donald Trump on this end that's like he just came straight from the pits of hell. And then you got this lady in the middle You know what I mean? So, of course, the flower child fall off. Then now you got just her and Hitler. So, you're not going to vote for Hitler. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to vote for either one of them, nor do I care. I don't think my vote even matters with them. But I respect Donald Trump completely. Coming from a man from the streets, I'd rather know this person I'm dealing with does not like me.
Yeah.
And then we can deal. Now, you don't like me? I already know. When I get on the trolley and I see you, it's wrong. Or I see you, and we got to keep our distance. But I'd rather that than somebody that I think's my homie or talking good to me. And we sit next to each other, not knowing he's really snaking my girl. He really over here. He just snipped my sack. You know what I mean? I'd rather know straight up who I'm dealing with. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in this case, I don't. So I got way more respect for Donald Trump.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't like him.
Right.
Neither do I like her.
Right.
But I'm just saying the respect level. Speak your mind, man.
Yeah,
Tell me you don't like me.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Neither one gets the vote.
I think that's why we have to continue having these conversations with our younger generation, because that explained like that I never heard before. You know, as an older person, I think, just as the sister said, you know, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. But if we were not, my perspective is this: what if we don't vote? What if we say that we're not going to vote at all, and then for some reason Hitler or even, you know, we had, let's be clear, our choices are
Lucifer and Satan.
our choices are, but if we do not, and then my perspective is, if we do not, then if, let's say, Trump gets elected, then we have to be conscious of what happens, you know, after that.
Well,
We've had to be cautious
But you-
anyway. When have we had a good
and our
president
votes
that
don't.
worked for
The
us?
Electoral College selects the president.
Right.
We don't. So
We
we're
don't.
just saying we prefer that one. They don't care. They're going to pick who they want, and then whatever America's agenda is going to flow. It's going to have a different mask. It's going to be a different puppet running the show. But at the end of the day, wherever they want America to go is where it's going to go.
Don't
Doesn't
forget
matter
what happened
it
with Bush.
Yeah,
He lost the election, but he still became president.
And I totally
Right.
agree with
It
you. And
doesn't matter.
I think that all those things are important. I think the other piece, I have kind of lean towards part of what Kevin is saying as well, is the fact that part of me, we talk about history and our ancestors whose shoulders we stand on, that's what you opened up with, and I just think about some of my own personal life process about my grandfather and the stories he told me about his people having the right to vote, and the deaths that were exacted. And I just think about the lynchings that was personally in my family that I was there for, and for all these things. And so I have a personal commitment to fight for it, even though I recognize that there's this electoral college piece. And I say also, you know, when I don't vote, you know, then at the same time I'm expected to have a voice because I chose not to vote. But the reality also is that people, it's just a cliche that if you don't vote one way or the other, then why do you even have a voice? Because you chose to stay, you chose to sit out the game, even though you're a star and you can be in the game.
Even if you don't have an option that you like, so I just have to vote?
No, that's your interpretation, and I respect your interpretation. And I'm saying that no, the options are not good. I don't like either one of them either, and I'm 67 years old. I don't like either one of them. I think that Hillary is doing a certain amount of pandering, and I know that Donald Trump don't give a damn about us. You know, and that would be fun. The other piece is that I look at the past 50 years. And it doesn't matter the past 50 years. It didn't give a big rat's ass about what party was in office. I'm gonna use one I'll just use one demographic. The demographic of unemployment for black men has not changed. You know, for the past 50 years, it's always been twice that, and as white folks. I realize that. However, I also believe that if we recognize and understand the game that we didn't create, but we're in the game because we're in America. It's a capitalistic society, and the game is money. Black Lives Matter did put a stop to some things and hit pocketbooks. When we had the rebellions, some call it riots, it was the pocketbook that made them step up and step back.
Right.
You know, so we got to understand the game here is capitalism.
Right.
White capitalism, white supremacy, and racism. You know, so if we understand, but we got to get down to understand the depths of what those are and how they are exacted upon us. I suggest that we only know pockets of the game, and that we have dots of the game. The dots within the game are not connected. If we can begin to understand that piece, then we can make a difference as it comes down to how we vote. Even local votes make a difference on the national scale. That's what we're missing.
We should concentrate on that way more.
That's what I'm saying. Because that will make a difference in Washington. Who the hell you vote for as a congressman here or a U.S. senator here makes
that's
makes
important.
a difference.
That's way
more than the
Please don't
president.
get blinded. So I'm saying, whoa. Because they're connected.
Right.
That's how
But let me say this, because you know, and this is a paradoxical statement, but I'm gonna say it. And you know, when Trump says, because I'm listening to what you're saying, you know, 50 years. When Trump says that, what do you have to lose? I agree with him and I don't agree with him. But I agree with him from the perspective that, neither party is going to do anything for you. No. So, I mean, he's right in saying, what do you got to lose? Because, like, hey, look at the mess you in. You know what I mean? Even though we don't like the way his mannerism, the way he said, and we know where he's coming from when he said from a racist and appealing to the whites, not really appealing to us anyway, and so on. But what he said, what do you have to lose when you look at it from the perspective of what you just said, 50 years. And when I look at, even when they talking about best practices and all this other kind of stuff they bring, these programs they bring in our community, it hasn't worked. It hasn't done anything in our communities, in the sense of we're still fighting, you know, still in mess, because we're dealing with a system. We're dealing with a system. You have to change system. And that's why I think people like Shirley Weber is very important, because, you know, she's changing system policies. I mean, she's making some serious and some serious changes.
Some serious stuff about Cal Gangs. That was really serious.
Yeah.
I would like to just jump in and I'll back off, because I just want to get this out. The thing that concerns me around this guy named Donald Trump that could possibly become the president is that, I don't want anybody to play that short, because that's a real possibility. The way I look at it, that it could possibly get worse, we would damn sure have a real police state. That's what I'm concerned about. And
we don't have that now?
Right.
No.
Go out here to Ocean View on Tuesday or Thursday.
Trust me, it is not. You know, I know you wasn't here. You wasn't here back in the day in the '60s. We were here. Yes, it was the same thing then in the 60s. Police was everywhere, even more so in a variety of ways. And we had organizations that was having shootouts with the police department and so on and so forth. And even, well, anyway, I won't go there. So yes. No, I'm talking the police state that we see now, Armand, will be nothing.
You don't think it'll get there anyway at the rate we're going?
No.
Let the police keep killing us like they're doing. You think we ain't gonna turn it up?
But I think that since everybody's more armed now, yes, I think that there is the possibility of a real civil war, unlike we've never seen before. Okay, but then but that civil war will wind up being one of classism and race. So racism and classism are twins. And if we understand these terminologies, how they're played out and how they work, then yes, we can be better prepared. But yes, do I have a target on my forehead, on my chest, and on my back? Damn right, I know I do.
But see, I think that's kind of like when we talk about this generational gap. I think, you know, with some of our elders and with the younger group, when we talk about the police, I think there's, not saying so much you, but there's a gap there, because when you talk to the young guys today, and when you hear what they say, it's almost like you already are under a police state, versus, you know, what you're imagining it can be as far as being under a police state. And thing I would say the difference between coming up in the 60s, the 70s, and even the 80s, because that's when things really dramatically start changing, is policies, laws. Laws are more severe now and really hurt Even just getting stopped by the police will hurt you. Getting arrested and even charges being dropped will hurt you more now than it would have 30 years ago, 40 or 50 years ago. So being under a police state in the mind of youngsters and how it really affect them, and being stopped every day and harassed every day and patting down your car almost every day and so forth. We all went through that, coming up. But I think the difference is now is that how these policies really dramatically affect your life and can alter it.
I agree, and I don't minimize any of what you're saying, and I'm certainly sensitive to what Armand is identifying. I'm just saying that I believe
it can be
that
worse.
it can get a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
I am one of them.
See, you have an imagination there.
I'm just saying I've seen what it's been.
Right.
What it is today, and I'm saying this ain't nothing. Wait,
what it could become.
What it can become? Because my background's no different. I got that street time behind me. I had that handcuff. You guys remember down here? You guys probably remember down Commercial at the lumberyard down there. That's where they used to take us, beat our.
I call it the box factory.
Okay, so we're not exempt from any. So all those things. But now you guys are the digital age, so people can see it, hear it, and respond to it instantly. That's why you say folks are looking for an instant change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I can support that because it's been more than 50 years. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
I support the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with you though. It's consistently getting worse. If Donald Trump is the president, I agree. Like the Honorable Minister Farrakhan say, he gonna take this country on a rocket ship to hell. So it's happening. It's happening anyway, and it's gonna continue to get worse anyway because this is the fall of America. But as him in that seat, it's just we're gonna go from 30 miles an hour to 90 miles an hour.
Okay,
So we're gonna go ahead and take a break. We're gonna take this intermission for a brief commercial. So stay tuned to what's happening now on KBLKRadio.com, and we'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to what's happening now on KBLKRadio.com, and thank you for staying with us. And we're still talking about bridging the generational gap and working with our strengths and our values and the whole shebang. We have Mr. Kahalifa King stepped out, but Mr. J. Magnifico Bowser stepped in. So welcome to what's happening now, my brother.
Hey, how you doing? It's a beautiful show we got going here today.
So what do you think so far, what you heard?
I seem like we pretty much, all on the same page. The only thing is, I believe they said, when it comes to the youth, I guess we consider youth because we're a little bit younger. It's just have a little more of that fire to be a little bit more radical. And then when it comes to the elders, it's more wisdom. So when you put the two together, it's just going to be a great thing.
Making that connection, like Kahalifa was saying, you had a quarter. On one side you have tails, on the other side you have heads, but it's still a quarter, and the different sides, of it. And so, we have our differences and different experiences and so on, but we bring it together to work together for a common good, which we need to do. But back to the politics of things. When we're looking at the politics and we're talking about presidents, the presidential election, and you have local elections here that affect us, because you have your congressmen, you have your assemblymen, your senators, state senators, and federal senators, and so United States senators, or whatever term you want to use on that, and all this affects us, and one way or another, policies are going to be changed either to help us or to hurt us. And especially now when we're trying to deal with reforming the criminal justice system, and this is what we were talking about yesterday, right? Reforming the educational system, reforming housing, reforming loans and banks, and all these things that affect us. But one of the things is for sure, if we don't find a way to change policies that affect us in the sense of being able to get a job, being able to get a good education, being able to, as we were talking yesterday, get into housing, and not just kind of like bar me or alienate me in a certain community. I should be able to move and live wherever I want to live, but sometimes that's not it. What they're doing in the 50s and the 60s, they're doing now, today too. You just, it's just not as obvious as it is. They're not going, and I see it even, in East County, when blacks move in, other folks start moving out. You still having the white flight and so on. So when we talk about, looking at this generational gap and we're talking about politics and so on, is it important to vote for a president or not?
I think, and we've heard the reasoning from our younger generation, Chaney and Brother King here. It's definitely an issue between both. I think the more better question is who would be more tolerable today versus who we like to vote for as becoming the president. Because I see, it's the when you look at Trump, it's just my opinion, when you look at Trump, man, as the brother said, quoting Minister Farrakhan, we're on a fast way to hell. Is that fast way to hell going to be less timely with Hillary? or is it we want to go right down?
I think it's a damn shame we ain't even got it. That's a damn shame we even got to have that as a question. We just need to start building our own. Forget that. Are you going to stab me and kill me to death slowly? Or are you going to shoot me in the head?
But an honest way of looking at it is that you have President Obama, the first black president. The reason I love that is because it gives the youth, coming up. Say if you're 10 years old, that's the only president you know. So you feel like, hey, I can be a president one day.
Now, regardless of
the image. Now, was he able to fix things for black people? No. And one of the major reasons why he wasn't able to is because of Congress. So we can say Hillary, Donald Trump, all we want, but what we got to remember is we do have to vote on the next level down, one step down. I know everybody presidential, but if we need to take over the House, you have to take over the Senate. Otherwise, things aren't going to get pushed through anyway.
So the president is the puppet. He just is the public face. But like you said, there's Congress, there's all these other people. They can't do he or she can't do anything by themselves. But when we just talk about presidential elections, it's almost as if presidency is like something that's so far from us. Like it's something that's not it's not really tangible. It's unattainable. So when we talk about politics, we need to be talking about policy. We need to be talking local. Because when I'm talking about the president, I don't care about the president. You know what I'm saying? And when you're, but the way it's presented to you is like the president is like the greatest thing ever, the most important thing over. Right. And so we focus on that instead of focusing on all these other little people underneath and all these other parts and pieces. We all worried about Hillary and Trump, but there's all these other people that we need to be worried about as well. We don't even think of them. We don't even think about the people in our own city.
Right.
Like we're doing all this stuff with Myrtle Cole. People don't even know who she is. I didn't know who she was a year ago. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm learning all of these different pieces of the puzzle, and we need to focus on those smaller pieces instead of looking at that big image. Let's.
It's a distraction.
It's a distraction.
So, keep looking at the sun while I'm robbing you in your pocket.
That's true. We're in San Diego. You can probably ask people in the Southeast. Do you know who Myrtle Cole is, or do you know who Donald Trump is, or Hillary Clinton? They're gonna pick Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, but won't know their own. And then I was like that coming up. I didn't start knowing, so I just started becoming more conscious and woke and realize this. So you're absolutely right. We have to spend a lot more time educating this next generation on focusing on policy locally. Because look at Shirley Weber, like you said, that's state assembly, and she's like moving mountains.
Right.
I think if we didn't get her in there,
and that's probably like the system. Like in school, when they teach you government or whatever, they're teaching you more so about U.S. government and the Trumps and the Hillarys rather than like educating the students about local politics. And so, but if you educate the kids about local politics and that's where their focus is going to be, then they're going to be able to affect that. Right. They don't want us to affect that, so they're not going to tell you about it. We're just going to tell you about Hillary and Trump, something that you feel like you can't reach anyway. So even as far as running for local politics, who feels like, oh, I'm going to be the president? People say that, but that's not something that people genuinely feel like anybody can do.
Right.
But if you were talking about local politics, anybody can do that.
Right.
But they don't educate us on that.
Jump in there and make it happen and so on. That's
we seen that firsthand with when I had first walked up and I heard you guys talking about the incident we had. Who would have thought that a bunch of youngsters, a lot coming the young and disrespectful and disruptive will be able to get the attention of the political arena within San Diego. So I mean, things are possible, way more possible on a local level. So we should concentrate our forces on what's more tangible, but we tend not to.
I got a comment, keeping on the politics and the generation gap. Right now, there's a few different organizations like BayPAC, like Pillars of the Community, Claiming the Community. There's a few different organizations that are out here focusing on getting new voters registered.
Right.
You know, young registered voters.
Right.
And I think they're mostly even geared towards the young, because a lot of the older people in the community are kind of already registered to vote. I don't know, I might be speaking out of the side of my cheek right now, but but for those older ones, that generation that are able and already into the voting, we're young, we don't even really think about voting like that. Somebody has to really bring it to our attention, like, you're gonna get arrested, this is what's happening, if you don't do this, all your homies gonna keep going to jail forever, you know, and things like that shake us up, that register with us.
But we didn't have that conversation back in my day.
Okay, but I'm saying right now, hold on.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. I
Yeah.
love it. We got to keep doing it. We got to keep doing it. But where I'm getting to is all of the elders and the older generations that are already in tune with voting need to look deeper on these laws and stuff,
And that's what I was
because
going to
they
say.
could help
I
us
think
now.
They're in tune with voting more so, like he was saying before he left, that, you know, he watched people being lynched and whatever, and that fight to be able to vote. So for older people, like,
They
we have the right to vote now. So we're going to vote. I'm exercising my right. Not I'm educated about exercising my right. I'm
Or what
just
I'm voting
exercising that
on.
right. We couldn't do it now. We could do it. People were dying with voting. Us, we didn't see people dying. We hear about. We don't say we know that happened, but it's not. It's not as a relevant experience to us. So we like, I don't care about voting. You guys, I'm not saying everyone, but are not educated about voting. But you're gonna vote because you can. We don't care. We not. We can. We don't care. We don't know about it, and we don't know.
Well, I don't think I didn't really get into. I think I was like about maybe 28 years old, something like that, when I registered to vote. 26, 27, 28 years old. Before then, I didn't vote. Wasn't registered to vote. I got involved with the union. And these folks trying to tell you need to register to vote. You know, that little talk. I don't care about all that. You know, my king is Jesus. You know, I'll say one of those kind of things. I don't need to vote for no man. You know, he got me. You know, but then they started showing me, you know, like, because I was involved in the labor movement on my job and so on. You know, the steward, president of local, and all that. They started showing me all these different policies that you want to change for labor, things you want to change, you want to make a difference in. And they say you got to get this person in, this person, this person in to do this. This is what he's going to do, and this affects your livelihood. This affects working people. And so then I registered because of that, and I just voted on the slate. Okay, who's all pro-labor? Whoever's pro-labor, I voted for them based on, you know, them supporting the issues that we were trying to put forward. And that's what kind of got me into it, you know. But even then, you know, and that's one of the things we try to do now is bring labor and the community together. I was at a SEIU meeting and able to talk about mass incarceration and reform the criminal justice system and so on, and smart justice and things like that to them, so that we can all work together, because we have to bring all folks together to fight the fight that we're trying to fight in our communities today. I think that younger people are more educated now, or I should say more actively involved now than probably in my generation. Maybe like in the 60s, really, but my generation coming up in the 70s and the 80s, you know, you really didn't care about none of that voting and stuff like that.
And let's be clear. I think that a lot of us, in my opinion, really didn't even know about voting, or wasn't more concerned about voting until Obama.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's when it became clear that we need to get out and vote. You know, I didn't, back in the days, I wasn't voting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, none of us, I think, not a lot of us, some, a lot of us wasn't voting because until Obama was becoming president.
You hope that
Then you open up your mind, you like, man, we got to vote. We got to get this brother in here. And that I think brought a lot of awareness to the voting thing. And it's terrible, man. It's horrible what our generation, our younger generation is going through and what we're going through during this time. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
And I understand, like Cheney was saying and Brother King was saying about policy, getting those, you know, those other things, looking at those other entities in the voting, you know, arena versus the presidency.
Right.
But, as I said, it's just who you want to tolerate.
Yeah, it's who you can stomach. I can't even stomach Donald Trump. People talk about him and watch his little videos. I can't put energy into responding and thinking about it, feeling like I can't stomach Donald Trump.
My 100% belief inside is that our vote doesn't matter when it comes to that.
It doesn't.
Going back to, they are selected. Obama was selected. Bush was selected, and in your face selected. No, you didn't win, but no, we're going to put him in anyway. Okay? I don't know if we gotta know I'm looking at that time, but we gonna change. I don't know if I'm changing direction, but I have a question for y'all. Okay. On the solution base, because moving forward, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but once us youth recognize those particular elders, not all of them, because a lot of them are good too, but those ones that have sold out, cooned out, bought out, once we recognize them, whether they're pastor, whether they work directly for the mayor, whether they your next door neighbor, once we recognize that, or most particularly the community so-called leaders, once we recognize that they are not for us as a whole, not our generation, but just us, our babies, the future, forget us, we working for the babies. Once we recognize they are not for us, what do we do to handle them?
Man, let me jump right in.
Kevin been having that issue for a few years.
I think that once you recognize those individuals who are doing, as you say, the cooning or who don't have the best interest, not only for our community, but for the younger generation as well, you have to do what's necessary. You have to have that same type of passion that you stand for against the injustices, against our people. You have to have that same kind of passion going for them. Go for their head. Because they need to be out of here exposed, and that's the frustration I have. Because when we want change, when our younger generation want change, and when we want change, here they come with this, passive, cooning kind of approach that makes you say, what the hell? Get out the way. They need to get out the way. Get them out the way by any means necessary. And any means necessary. You know what I'm saying? You have to have
any legal means necessary.
Yeah, any legal means.
Right.
Expose, like you keep saying, expose, but yes, expose them and make it, because I feel like, well, it's almost like, well, you don't do too much because they're one of us, but no, you're not one of us. If you're part of the injustice, you're part of the system at this point. If you are opposing what we want for the greater good of the community, then we have to treat you as an outsider rather than like, well, we don't want to, be too hard or be too whatever. Like, yes, we do. I got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old son. Like, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to whoever you are. I don't care what color you are, and I don't care whose grandpa you are or grandma or whatever. If you're in the way, then you're in the way, and it doesn't matter.
How do we handle that, though? Because in the same respect, it's like, I don't like to show the enemy and outsiders that we're fighting amongst each other. I think we do it within.
Say like we have, the community, what them things called? The
forums,
town hall meetings. Yeah. That's full of black people, essentially. It's full of our community, but do it in that space so that the next time we have that, you can't come in here like you running the show and like you on the good side, because we already put you out there, and we're going to keep putting you out there. And not like on media, like, for white people to see, but for us to see.
And I completely, go ahead, Jay. No, I completely agree with that. I think that when you, out them and you kind of come with facts, and it's shown blatantly. My only thing is that sometimes I try to be careful not to disregard a man or a woman's past, because they may have did 30, 40 years of doing the right thing and fighting for your people, and in this last 10 years they may have became more capitalistic and trying to provide for themselves in their retirement.
Score don't count for today's ball game.
That's very true. And so you have to look at it in different ways. Some of us will be more radical and want to get out here and change policies. Others may say, well, hey, I'm not all for changing policies, but I'm going to create organizations where I can get people hired and things like that. Another one. So it's like,
if you're doing the work, you're doing the work. I don't expect everybody to be out here too.
Not everybody's vocal to stand up front. They may be doing the work in a different way. But if you're not even doing
work, play your role. I'm talking straight out. You is a sellout, homie.
I think for those
this congregation,
for those straight sellouts, you just have to out them. I think the one good thing, I don't want to put nobody on blast or say no names, but when we had the thing down at City Hall and there was certain opponents that were trying to stick up for certain individuals, I think the way that we put them on blast in the hallway, just amongst ourselves, not in front of everybody, but just, hey, how can you honestly do this? Here's the facts. This is that, man. And honestly, we looked up to you. Let us down. We looked at you as a leader, and you just let us down. And when you see the look in their eyes, it kind of like you could see their life is so kind of being drained from them, because now they start to realize nobody's told me this. I've been able to go along happily cooning for so long, and now finally somebody's approaching me and busting me out. Sometimes you just got to bust them out and keep it real, tell them like it is, and they may change. And if they don't change, you just got to keep rolling over them.
Because even at City Hall, once they spoke, they didn't say exactly what I thought they were going to say. Because they had positive things to say about some of what we were doing. We don't completely agree.
They watered it down.
They would sit tiptoeing because I don't know why they were scared. I guess.
Yeah, they got personal.
I
They knew
think
we was right, really.
Yeah.
I think that when you talk about that, I think a lot of times we talk about it, and that's all we do. Don't really move to action when it comes to dealing with these so-called leaders. Because when I wrote that article, black pastors need to separate themselves from Mayor Faulkner, and these pastors, I had a meeting with them, some of them, and so on, and they was offended and talking about their members and read the paper and all that kind of stuff, and they had issues. But here's the thing, that the issue that I have is that maybe nobody read it, but nobody didn't piggyback off of that and call into question, like, yeah, why are you guys over there with the mayor? And like Jay's going to keep pushing that issue. Yeah. And so that's one issue. You got to keep pushing these issues when it's out there until, like I was told years ago, lead, follow, get out of the way. So you can lead, you can follow, get out of the way, but we moving forward with this. The other thing is that, when we have specific leaders in leading certain groups, I'll tell the leader, hey, you need to step out or I'm out of this. I'm not going to be a part of this until you're gone, because you're misleading the people. But folks are afraid to stand up to those people and tell those people, you got to go. You can't lead us no more. We're going to have an election. When we're going to have an election to get you up on out of here so we can get another leader. Folks are not willing to do those kind of things, worried about offending, or like you say, all these years they've invested and so on, but they hurting us now. Yeah. And then thirdly, when you look at churches and so on, you got to get to the members, because the members praise and worship their pastor. And no matter what he does, I don't care what he does. I've seen this on a national level. A pastor can go out there and get women pregnant and all kind of stuff, have girlfriends and mistress and the whole shebang, stealing all the money, all those things. And they still have thousands of members. They still have thousands of members because they can, whatever the relationship is, come do what they want to do. So you have to hold them accountable through their members, and somehow you got to get a message to the members, and some of y'all might be the members. Then fourthly, I think also what has to happen when you look at these issues and so on in black leadership and so on, is that when you expose them or when you call them out, like either through papers or whatever else and things like that, you got to do kind of like what one of our persons is going to do. They go and run for the office themselves. Like, okay, NAACP, BAPAC, or whoever, I don't like this leadership here. Okay, I'm going to join this. NAN, I'm going to join this. And I'm going to work to get you out of here because you're not representing us right. And I'm going to be that Trojan that comes in, build a movement within to get you up on out of here. But we can't be afraid to do that. And so what has been the problem is we will talk, but we continue to let these folks rain havoc within the black community doing what they want to do. And we make excuses for them. Oh, I respect it. Well, I don't respect you that much. I operate on principles. And my principles say you're not right and you're not representing us right. And I don't want to hear your because especially black leaders and pastors, they're very charismatic, they're very articulate, and they're very smooth talking, just like that pimp out on the street. And so that's what I was going to get into. If you let them talk, they'll woo you. I don't want to hear it, man. You're out. But we go for it. We listen to it. We go and we die out in our spirit, and we let them do what they're going to do.
And that's something I was going to touch on was when you brought up the pimping part, is that they're poverty pimps. So a lot of time if you have what I know I came to know, I'm sure you guys notice the same thing as being younger and coming up into this political realm and trying to be a part of different organizations and seeing certain leaders, is that there's poverty pimps. So there may be a situation to where someone is saying, I'm just doing this because, out of the goodness of my heart and for my people. But in all actuality, he's maybe have a certain contract, with the city, or he may be getting certain things done from this individual that we may be trying to fight against that's not doing good for the people, and they're going to stay behind that person even though they know that person is wrong because of financial gain. So when it comes to being a poverty pimp, that's very, very serious. So they see our generation coming up, and we not so much worried about that. Money can be thrown our way in different things, and we're not concerned on that. We really want to see our people advance. So when you have the people that are above us, for the moment we got into this thing, what we always hear our mind, as soon as you get to talk to somebody, so what is y'all looking for? Y'all looking for some funding? funding or something? Hey, look, I can hook you up with some funding, man. You know, I know this person in this office, that person in that office. I can get you some funding, and you guys would be good once I get you some funding. That's all we always heard. Every conversation with the elder was about funding, money. I said,
came through, by the way.
yeah. But then that's all I realized is that a lot of our elders in these positions, all they care about is money, funding. And then I didn't start to see them come out of the woodworks until we started to mess with their money. The minute they felt like you guys are going after this political person that is funding me, we got to come out and speak out against that because now you messing with my money. So it's a lot of poverty pimps that's going on in the community.
As soon as we came out of City Hall the second time, and one of these big pastors, one of these churches and organizations out here, he came outside and had a crowd of us, and he was like, man, he was called in to come rescue Myrtle Call at that time. He came outside and was like, man, you guys, we need to get this money. Man, I seen Aaron check that dude so cold in front of me. He said, look, man, first thing you hit him in his chest, first thing you said to me when you came over here, because we listened all the way out. Like, whoa, and he thought we biting in, and Aaron checked. Thank you, Aaron. He checked that dude so hard.
Money.
Like, that's the first thing you say to us. You didn't come over and ask us about our issues, how we felt about nothing. You come over and tell us how to get this money. Whoa, man. Keep your money. With all this, man, I can't even word it like he did, but he checked that.
And they don't have no.
So that's the generational disconnect with certain people. And we're not with that BS no more. And Lord, are we going to allow that? And I'll expect her to check me if they see me, or likewise, we're not with that, man. And especially personally coming from where I'm coming from, we done touched dough already. If I wanted to live another life, I could touch dough again. It's not about the money. I'm living for my people right now. I'm dead for me. I don't live for me. Armand can have whatever he wants right now. I'm good. I ain't about that.
Absolutely. I think the consequences of exposure should be in line with the intent. And let me explain what I mean by that. If there's someone who is caught preventing change in our community or to a younger generation, did they know they were doing it?
Right.
Were they doing it on purpose? Or are they just doing it because they don't know?
That's
And if it's someone who is doing something and they don't know, I think there could be conversation.
Right, I think you're absolutely right, because one thing that I know we were hearing is a little bit of backlash from some elders. We want to back you, but we just don't know what it is that you guys are fighting for. So we took the time to go to each major venue and break down and explain and make the proper phone calls so people can be informed. You're absolutely correct. Is that sometimes a person may not want to stand up and fight because they're not fully informed. We just was in the meeting recently, and we were talking about Prop 57, and then we was expecting somebody like, you're supposed to be fighting, major big pastor, and he was like, well, I'm not informed on the situation.
Know what it is.
So sometimes you're right. People aren't informed on the situation.
And then there are others who know what they're doing, who have been called in for a certain agenda to say, hey, well, you need to go over there and speak to that group of people because they're causing havoc. Those type of people, those consequences of exposure should be more greater than those who don't know. You know what I'm saying? If I know I'm doing something, if I've been called in and say, hey, well, Black Lives Matter's over there, you need to go talk to them, have a conversation, or set some kind of traps around so that they get, put in all those misinterpretations like they do in the media. Like Black Lives, for example, when Black Lives Matter first came out, shortly after that, they were saying that they were a hate group, or that they didn't care about the lives of other people. No, that's not what Black Lives Matter was when it first started. Initially, Black Lives Matter was just saying,
why are you fooling with the birthday? And folks just seem to go along with everything. But when I saw this younger generation come up, they're like, we ain't having it. No, we're gonna fight. We're gonna when they were trying to have that town hall, they had certain people on it with Murder Code, like, he got to go, he can't build it. We're gonna shut it down if he comes, and so on. They ain't used to that kind of stuff. They're not used to that. And then you have the older generation sitting in there trying to be goody. Even people that you think is on your side, but they're quiet. They're not going to stand up to speak. I felt like I had to get up to say something to let everybody know that, hey, I'm with these elders. And what's happened with police brutality and things like that. When we were dealing with the 182.5 with Aaron them and all those guys, had people come to, because relationship we have PD and working, trying to invite well, you know you're going to ruin your relationship over here. You're able to go on both sides. You're going to mess that up. So, well, if I mess it up, this is an injustice, and I can't just sit on the sideline and allow injustice to happen. We have to get out there and do something about it.
Being in the position, you know, and I'm not saying that just because you pop. I mean, they can, you know, Armand and Shannon can say the same things that. You know, whenever there's like a panel discussion or some kind of town hall thing, we always hate it because it's the usual suspects that sit up there. And then I know you always like, man, put some youth up there. Man, you need to have some youth up there. You know, you're always fighting for that. Put some youth up there. And at the same time, you work with city officials in the police department. But if you see them doing something wrong, you're gonna out them on that. And then someone in your position catches a lot of flack that a lot of people may not see. So it's like you being a martyr. So I can see, you know what I mean? Not that it's good, but I can see why a lot of elders don't want to stand up and do the right thing like you do, because you catch a lot of flack while they get to just try to sit back and, you know what I mean, tell their assistants to do this and that. Don't have to really worry about being a martyr.
And they actually come to me and tell me sometimes, oh, you're going to lose credibility.
Yeah.
You know,
With who? Like, who are you worried about?
I'm worried about God and how much credit I get from him. Your credit don't matter to me.
Right.
Thank you.
Exactly.
I've had bad credit my whole life. I'm worried about credit.
Exactly.
You gotta step out. You gotta step out and fight. That's the truth.
So now, we're talking about the politics and things like that, but I think one issue that we most definitely have to touch on before we end this is when we look at the racial issues and we look at poverty and we look at crime and gangs and mass incarceration and changing policies, you know, within the systems and so on. What do you all think should be changed first? I mean, I should say first. What is the next thing that should be changed in the system dealing with policies and surrounding the issues that we deal with? You know, because I was trying to encourage you when I was actually about that video is because they talk about in there. It talks about I was looking at a prison in Norway, and I think we talked about this yesterday, where for murder a person does the max is 21 years for that. In what's the name? It was another country. I forget the name of the country. Is it German? No, it's not German. I forget the name of the country. But drugs is not even a crime. They focus on treatment and helping you and so on. And so we kind of see crime.
Our system is completely just like punitive, and it's not worried about treatment. It's not worried about rehabilitating. It's not worried about like people. It's just worried about punishment and making money.
Right.
So that's like
that's
if you were worried about rehabilitation, then you're punishing somebody. Then you'll send them out eventually to go back and do the same thing. But if you were rehabbing, then
what I think she's absolutely correct. I think is that if we stop focusing so much on being punitive and be more restorative, as far as like. If somebody gets caught with anything with kind of drugs, you can kind of work your way out of it to where you don't have. You say if you go to do a little bit of time, do some programs, whatever, but the felony falls off.
Right. What happens is hold you back.
You carry that felony with you for so long. So it's like if somehow for our people, if there's a way to get your background expunged. And I know you can, but I'm talking about even if you have a violent crime, if you commit a robbery, whatever it may be, after a certain amount of time, like we talked about yesterday, if we can kind of put some laws in there to where them felonies, Armand knows this very well too from recent stuff. If you can get that to fall off somehow, so many lives would be better.
It's like, well, I can get out of jail and do everything right now and become a new person, but this background is haunting me and I can't get a job still.
It holds you back, so I think that's a major thing.
So those are things we need to worry about voting on. And look up Prop 57, those that are listening. We need y'all all out there in full force. Let's get Prop 57 passed. Let's do this. It's something that does affect you, that you can see change. You know what I mean? Forget Lucifer and Satan. I mean Hillary and Donald.
Because pretty soon you're gonna see a commercial come out from one, and it's gonna be one of these Republicans up to like, do you want to let out murderers and rapists? If you want to let murderers and rapists and Tyrone run through your neighborhood, messing your daughters, then you need to vote no on Prop 57. So before that commercial comes out, because they'll be lying. So before that commercial come out, they do that. Get informed on Prop 57.
Here's the thing, though. Going back to Norway, because I really looked at that. With all crimes that they deal with, they are looking at loving their neighbor. How can I help my neighbor? I forgive my neighbor. I'm not thinking of revenge, I want to see him get the help that he needs. So in our society, we're bent on what? Being tough, being hard. This murderer, this rapist, but even them, need help.
But one thing I got to add on that, because you had told me about that documentary, and I watched it last week up until I had most of it, and I fell asleep. But one thing that was probably, this is why I fell asleep, to be honest. I was watching it, and I kept seeing so many white people. They were showing all these beautiful places, like there's always filling, and the education is great, and the justice system is great. And, oh, look at this place in Germany. Oh, look at this place here. And I was just seeing all black people. I said, that's why it's so peaceful and so great, because we have it bad here. They're helping their own. Of course, they're going to look like.
They don't have to deal with those issues.
The scoring of the. You should have kept watching it when he got to Germany. When he got to Germany, because he really broke that down.
There was
Germany.
black people in there.
Well, what he did with Germany is that in Germany, you know how Germany killed a lot of Jews.
Yeah.
And he showed how Germany took ownership of that.
Oh, and fight to the kids. I seen that part.
And they posted it. Then they went to America, came to America, and showed how blacks are treated.
Yeah, I seen that when they was explaining to the kids.
That.
What if you had to get up and then be thrown on the train? And I said they were explaining it.
So that's the thing. Like, America's foundation. We all know what the foundation of America is. But taking ownership. America has never taken ownership for anything that has happened.
And not going
we came here
apology.
Genocide amongst the natives, the indigenous people here. They're not apologizing. You would put them on reservations and whatever else. They're not apologizing, though.
That's right.
Slavery and genocide of black people. They're not apologizing. They're not even stating, well, this was wrong, and let's see how we can fix this and what we can build. Like, they're just trying to, well, y'all should stop crying. So if you could do an apology, acknowledge what happened, acknowledge why things are the way they are. But
shouts out to Georgetown University that just did what they just did with the, recognizing that they sold slaves, 235 slaves to get out of debt, to keep their, they recognize. As small as that is, but that's a recognition. Yeah. That's acknowledgement.
All right, well, man, we ran out of time with
landlord just came in. We ain't done. I thought we'd make 3 hours.
Yeah, I thought 2 hours would be long enough, with this. But most definitely, thank all of our guests for being on the show today and dealing with bridging the gap. And we can see how, with our younger generation, our older generation, we can work together, and we are working together. But we have issues in our community as far as bridging that gap to get the younger generation to have that respect and get the older generation to have respect. I think respect, as Kahalifa was talking about, is mutual. It's sharing our values, sharing our strengths, sharing our differences, and having mutual respect and understanding for each other to be able to move forward a lot of times. And so sometimes the problem is that people have ulterior motives and want to sell us out, and they can work themselves up to a certain level, and now it's all about them, their money, their mortgage, their car, whatever else they're thinking about, and so on. And we all have dreams and aspirations, but it's how we get there. And I think we, as a community, what's more important is we don't leave anybody behind, and we look out for our complete community, those that are in prison, those that are in poverty, the whole shebang, those that lack education. We need to build up our community as a whole to make our community whole. So we got a battle and a fight, but it begins right here, right now, where we are. Absolutely. And so thank you all for being on the show. We look forward to having this discussion again.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
All right. God bless you.
Thank you for being
and tune in next week at 10 o'clock, not 9. We start at 10 next week.
We have to do this again.